He's Todd Engel. I'm Jim Rupert. This is State Journal Register Central State 8 Conference football heading into week number 8. We've played 7. Who made a name for himself in week 7 in the Central State 8?
Many people made a name for themselves, but I'm going to go with Jake Williams from SHG in that offensive smorgasbord.
3 scores, interception return for a touchdown.
4 catches for 91 and 2, and then a 35-yard interception return with a impressive. It could have been a monster collision. He and Nick Lonergan sort of came to a head at the
hurdle at the end
near pylon, but Jake Williams sort of did a Superman impression right over him, and Nick kind of went under him, and I don't think it would have made much difference at that point. But
you mentioned Jacksonville. How do they lick their wounds after getting beat like that, giving up 63 in the first half? And now they're battling for their playoff lives.
Yeah, they are, and they play Springfield High at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. No, that's a great question. I think that Springfield sort of presents their own set of problems. The line's not as big, but they sort of operate in space maybe even more than what SHG does. They'll have to stop that, and frankly, I think that the fact that Springfield doesn't have quite the running game that SHG does will really play to Jacksonville's strengths, because teams that can line it up and pound it have really just thrown them for a loop this year.
The spread offense is nice when it's working, but when you turn the ball over, you're giving up. It's a high error offense, isn't it?
Yeah, and Jacksonville sort of blinked first when a holding call killed the drive, and then they started going 3 and out, and then the interceptions came, and it's one of those things where it's good if you can get ahead, but when you have to fight uphill and you have to keep executing at that high level, then the problems arise.
Another big game is Friday night, and that's over at Rocket Booster Stadium. They're already talking about making arrangements for parking and other stuff. They anticipate
arrive early.
A big crowd. Glenwood at Rochester. Glenwood's won 5 in a row. Been able to run the ball at will the last couple of weeks. Devin Von Nordheim-Moore did not play against Southeast, and they still ran the ball at will. What do you look for, Rochester, Glenwood?
First of all, talking to Dan Rourke, he said Devin's going to be good to go, so they're going to be at full strength, which is kind of the way I'd like to see this game. Ultimately, I think what it's going to come down to is Glenwood can't be a one-dimensional team against Rochester. They've been trying in recent weeks to sort of open up the passing game more. But if they can't throw the ball, or at least do something to keep Rochester honest, it's going to be tough for them to sort of hang with them. And I think they know that. Meanwhile, Rochester just sort of they've kept on clicking. They've taken that momentum from the big win over SHG and just sort of steamrolled everybody, including Springfield High, which is a game I thought for the life of me would be close, but wasn't. They just
from the jump they came out.
And and this is really, Rochester finishes with Southeast next week, so this is pretty much their last major hurdle between them and an undefeated conference championship.
And they have to believe that playing in the Central State 8 got them ready if they're a 4A team or, a 3A team. And you wonder which way is better, because the Carthage Illini West seems to be pretty formidable in 3A, and the teams we'll find out about another one of the contenders in 4A, because Breeze Mater Dei is in town for SHG.
I guarantee you that Derek Leonard and a vast majority of the Rochester coaching staff will be at Memorial Stadium to watch that one go down.
That's going to be Saturday night at 6 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Yeah, they moved it back.
They moved it back to give them time to clear out the stadium, which wouldn't be a bad idea.
And Mater Dei is for real. They've got a quarterback named Detmer that can really get it out.
Named Ty Detmer, but not that Ty Detmer.
Tyler Detmer.
Because he's used up his eligibility some time ago. No, it should be a really good game. You look at the stats. Numbers are pretty similar. I think that Mater Dei's thrown the ball a little bit more than what SHG has this year. They have their good complement of backs, maybe not quite the running game. But really, when you look at Pat Smith, he's really come into his own the last couple of weeks. I think he was 6 of 7 last week against Jacksonville for 3 or 4. There were so many touchdowns, I really lost count in that game. But he's throwing the ball a lot better, and Ken Leonard's talked all along that the receivers we've got, Jared Sargent, Jake Williams, are as good as anybody else in that team. It's just a little bit tougher to get the ball into their hands and to turn around and give it to Greg Wilson or Darryl McMath. But they've shown what they can do. And talking with James Dan. I'm forgetting the modern day coach whose name is eluding me at the moment. It's the camera. I blame that. But he said it's the biggest game in modern days.
I've
program
heard
history.
that they've been planning for this one for a long time.
And they both played Taylorville in the consecutive weeks, and modern day kind of wants to know how it stacks up against Rochester because those two teams could meet.
Right.
Well, now they're going to play the same team on the same field, so we'll find out.
We'll find out quickly. Let's talk about the playoffs. We know that Rochester's in. We know that SHG is in. Glenwood is, with 5 wins, is all but in.
Mm-hmm.
Springfield High, same situation. Jacksonville,
they finished with Taylorville to avoid the possibly going 5-4 and then having to sweat it out for the second straight year. They need to beat Springfield High. Springfield High, meanwhile, they finish up with Bloomington Central Catholic. If they win here and they win next week, they finish 7-2. Not only you're in, but maybe, just maybe, depending on a number of factors, you've got a home playoff game, which would be huge.
Hasn't happened. They have traveled 2 years in a row to Richmond.
Yeah. So, we'll have to see what happens there. But, a lot of teams, and conversely, if Springfield High loses, then these last 2 games, they go to 5-4. And they're sweating it out along with everybody
they're
else,
making
too.
the trip to Danville, maybe.
Yeah, which nobody wants to do this year.
Yeah.
So, a lot of stuff hangs in the balance, but for the most part, I think Jacksonville's the one question mark. Everybody else is pretty much in, but we'll have to see how it plays out.
And we'll see how it plays out when we talk next week. We'll see how it played out when we talk next week. Dick Butkus says, hey.
So does that Dick Butkus.